Welcome to Ballbusters Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum, which you should definitely all join. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Now we are joined by Betty Van Velsen, the Adam Meakin, Paula, otherwise known as Bible Literalist, and Quantum Eraser. A very big welcome one and all. Welcome to Ballbusters.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hoi hoi.
Good evening.
So there's going to be a few presentations, a couple of toe tags that will get trimmed out at a later stage today. We'll have a bit of chit-chat beforehand just to keep it nice and light. I know John gets a bit fussy if we launch straight into these presentations and toe tags, so we won't do that this week. But we'll have a little bit of a chat about how things have been going with the week. Possibly maybe a little bit of a plug for next week's Ballbusters, which is... and I'm not saying this week's show is going to be a slouch, because it isn't, but next week's show is going to be nothing short of epic. So you must definitely tune in next week's show. There'll be a few teasers and trailers and memes that we're going to put out over the course of the next week, just because that's how big next week's show is going to be. So I'm going to do a massive plug for next week's show straight off the bat. So that's that. Do we get a hello from Betty and Adam?
Yeah, hello. I'm here.
I think a simultaneous one, but good evening, everyone.
It was supposed to be ladies first. Didn't you get the briefing?
I'm all into equality, me.
I wasn't there for the briefing.
I think the briefing was last week. We finally ironed that out, so everyone could say hello, but ladies first.
Yeah, every week is a new week, so.
So what's happening, Adam? I missed your show last night. What happened?
Oh, it was good evening. We had Brendan Daly on, so good evening catching up with him. Just a bit of chit chat. You know what a Friday night's like. Nothing too profound. Little bit of quote on maths, which I found interesting. Could find that again, but yeah, it was a pleasant evening, and like I said, good to catch up with Brendan. He's getting back on the flat Earth horse again, and putting himself out there on. I don't know if you know him. He's much bigger on Facebook, but real top bloke. Headed off to deepest, darkest Honduras, I think it was, kind of preaching the flat Earth message. Real top lad.
Does he have some expertise in a particular area, or just general?
He's just brave as hell, mate. He was going, you know what I mean? He was going into just completely random areas, you know what I mean? Dodgy areas, and I think his skill, I suppose, is dealing with people and approaching and just discussing it. But yeah, nothing academic qualified in those areas, I don't think.
So he has some of the same expertise I have. You know, dealing with people, that's where I thrive.
That's where John shines. The real people person.
Yeah,
just a quick note to the audience. So there is a Discord link in the info box below this video. So not necessarily after every single section, but certainly at various points throughout the show, we will open the line on Discord. And if you're a member of the public that wants to express your views on anything that's been discussed on the show, not anything, but when the moment comes, then we'll obviously prompt you. But there is a link to Discord. You can join this conversation. So yeah, feel free to join the Discord server, and we'll raise the mic as appropriate. Okay, ladies, anything to add as chit chat?
Well,
light-hearted.
I was wondering what happened to Ranty yesterday with not showing up, or Brenda not showing up. What's the deal?
I
Does anyone know?
Yeah, I can
Ranty.
help you there. I'm the serial apologist for this, because obviously I was supposed to be on at 9 as well, but about about 5, 5:45, Ranty texted me saying I've not heard anything in over 24 hours from Brenda. Been texting her all day, so I'm gonna cancel that. And do you mind if I cancel you and I'll have the night off? So I said, yeah, no problems here. And I think he must have gone off. Well, he rang me later on, and I didn't chat with him just to say, oh, well, it is what it is, sort of thing. But I think he went off to the pub with the missus. So he rocked up later on, spoke to me about 10 o'clock. But I think it was just a misunderstanding, because Brenda was in the chat and the like saying, where are you? So it was just one of those. He assumed she wasn't coming, and she just assumed he would assume she'd be there. So
Yeah, it was funny. There were about 47 people in the chat at one time, chatting away for a couple of first minutes. And Brenda was there, and well, what's happening? I mean, I think the communication needs to be better, I think. Because, yeah. And he couldn't be reached because he was offline, I think, from Skype, Ranty. So
it was online. I rang him, and it rang through, but he obviously just, I don't know, probably left his phone or something, because there was no answer. I think Chocolate did the same as well.
yeah. Well, it was kind of disappointing. I would have liked to hear Brenda.
Well, I think it's going
Right.
off on Sunday. He said to me that, are you up for doing it again on Sunday evening at sort of 6, 7 o'clock time again? So I think both presentations are being lined up for then.
Oh, okay.
Ranty would have to confirm.
He'll be at the pub.
We will still get Brenda's and your presentation on Ranty's round table then.
Yeah, I mean, mine's recorded and been sent to him, so it's whenever he wants to, air it and the likes, and I'm free as well. So I said I was cool with Sunday, but it's up to Ranty. But it's there, ready for whenever. You know what I mean? So leave it with him.
So we're gonna hey Nathan, we need to put something together against friggin' Adam's presentation. Should be easy.
I thought you were only answering ball earthers. Your promise was not for flat earthers.
That's right, but
or is it just a personal favour you'll do me?
Yeah, just a personal favor, man. Yeah.
Just
can
like
make
to
an
make
exception.
a minor adjustment as we were Ballbusters. Missed out the team.
Now I can't wait. What is your presentation on?
Oh, you love it. It's a beautiful bit of reification for you. So. it's just the first thing I tried to do when I was trying to disprove flat Earth was come in and first thing you read it, and as someone who's not too bad at maths, saw that 8 inches per mile squared wasn't in any way a calculation. So I felt that was an issue. So I just kind of attacked to develop my own formula.
Wait a second.
There wasn't the meta bunks and the things like that out at that point. So
wait a second. You're saying the 8 inches per mile squared is not correct?
No, it's a squared function, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and it's good for the approximation, the sagitta, or by trig construction. You're going to get around the same answers for roughly. I took a look at it a while ago. It was like 1,000 miles. After that, it gets a bit squirrely.
Yeah, you know what else? You know what else lies quite closely in line with that, up to about 1,000 miles. The actual geometry of the Earth would be pretty similar, or close enough for it to not matter. You know what else would be pretty similar? Perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
none of it matters optically, but you know I'm a bit of a geek, so if I'm going to do a calculation, I'd like the number to be correct. So
Right. It's going to be geometric, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's exactly its purpose. Yeah, it's a geometric calculator, because that's initially what 4 or 5 years ago. The first thing I thought was a necessary tool to proceed. If you're gonna,
yeah, but didn't you see there's a paper out there? I had it along. I might still have it. It has the comparison between 8 inches per mile squared, the Sagitta, and trig construction. And like I said, they were all pretty much the same up until about 1,000 miles.
And perspective.
Part of the Iron Realm ethos is test it and do it, and with everything, do it yourself. So I was quite happy to break it down, not use. Sagitta uses the outside of the ball. My formula calculates only from the inside and assumes the drop as representative to the parallel mark on the circumference when you draw a parallel line to the radius. So you'll see the presentation anyway, but it's a cleaner definition of drop for me.
Are you doing the presentation now? I mean...
No.
But just correct me if I'm wrong, Adam.
It's a ranty premiere.
Your mathematics will demonstrate that they are erring on the globe side. It's in the globe favour to use 8 inches per mile. It's worse when you do your maths. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin your presentation, but yeah.
Nathan,
it's not that. It's not about that. It really is about. I spoke last night trying to demystify a bit of maths and take what maths actually is. So it really is just to show you that this curvature formula can be easily derived, and the presentation is the actual using logic and reason to make statements of assumption about the geometry, and then putting those statements together to derive maths and showing you what maths is. It's a very simple thing. And if you use logic and reason, you can apply it to build a curvature formula for yourself. So I'm trying to, maths is a tool. That's all it is. And it's just trying to exemplify that. There's nothing special about showing that something works in maths. You can make anything work in maths. You know what I mean? It's about deriving it correctly. So it's just to take it off its pedestal a little bit and show how simple maths is.
Cool.
Can I ask a question to Nathan? I mean,
Yeah.
Nathan.
No.
Yes, you can. Of course you can.
Yeah, Nathan, is there a reason why you have chosen a different voice chat in Discord? Or
What have I chosen to make wrong?
well, you're not in live stream, but in the after show.
Oh, really? Well.
Because these people are muted, so.
Okay, I'll just keep that line closed. Or should I just
I can move them to the live.
Yeah, just move them.
Yes, just move them, because I do actually have to play sound out from a presentation on that line, so if they're all in there and muted, they'll talk through the presentation, which won't be so good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay,
Just
while
let
you're
us know
moving
when
them...
it's done.
Yeah, exactly. If you can let us know when it's done, and then we'll start. Yeah, we're
Cool.
nearly there. Shall I bring up your... which bit do you want me to bring up first, QE?
Yeah, go ahead. Bring up my screen. Let me know when it's up, and give me the go when you're ready.
Your screen.
Before John goes, sorry, but this is a personal thing. Can I just give a big shout out to me mate Tony and his big TV? Looking forward to seeing you back, pal.
You can.
And I did.
And you did.
And I'll stop now.
And you're up now, John. You're presented.
We ready to go?
We are.
All right. So we're gonna do a couple toad tags here. We already did a toad tag on Toady previously, but we're gonna kill him twice. So twice dead because of just a statement that he made. And I did a short presentation on this about 4 or 5 days ago. And something's come up, so we're going to do it again. It's a short presentation, but let me show you who this guy is so you can recognize him out on the circuit. So this is Toady Retard, right? Mr. Lion. He's a self-professed, I quote unquote, experienced scientist and a cartographer for 29 years. He's running rampant on the chat, he's a significant chat troll in the comments. I picked all some of those up from the chat. And just notice up here, we got Brian Peck, Mr. Peckerwood, that I exposed, a few weeks ago. So where you been? Get your butt over here, clown. But let's get off of him. We don't need him for right now. So, Toady Retard, like I said, we're going to do the presentation, and I want you to pay close attention to this statement, because this is what my entire argument was about. The 2-minute presentation. So this is what Toady Retard said. Nathan and QE tried to debunk the fact that there's no Earth curve using Google, right? Which is a WGS84 projection of an oblate spheroid onto the Earth, and they think that they should see drop, right? And as I keep saying, if you went at sea level 0, wherever you are on the sea, and you sailed halfway around the globe, it's still 0, because you're still at sea level, because it's taken, from the center of the Earth. Now, as soon as he said that, I said, well, wait a second, that's way off, right? And I just wanted to make a presentation just on this statement. It's going to be very important. So, apparently, Toady Retard was on vacation from Captain Kangaroo Preschool when I pummeled the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia, Georgie, peddling this same inane horseshit, right? You guys all remember that? The Globetards only port in a storm. It's this. Elevation is measured from the center of the Earth, right? The same thing that he said up here. Georgie had a whole presentation on this. And what they're trying to say, that is, every point along the surface of the Earth is equidistant from the center of the Earth, right? But there's big problems with that in two folds. A, from their alma mater wiki, elevation is not to be confused with the distance from the center of the Earth. Let me say that again. Elevation is not to be confused with the distance from the center of the Earth, right? So that should just pummel his whole appeal right there. But we'll go a little further, because up here, he appealed to the WGS84 in the oblate spheroid, right? How in the world can he even make that claim when they live on an ellipsoid? Let's take a look at this. So, the Earth is an ellipsoid. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So, the Earth is an ellipsoid, right, for the WGS84. Well, as you can see, remember, their claim is the elevation is the same for every point from the center of the Earth. But as you can see right here, that's bollocks. Because any 2 points on the surface right here, if we crosshair and quarter this like we did, any 2 points right here from the distance from the center of the Earth are going to be different, right? I mean, this is just duh stuff, people. So I don't even know how they could say that. But they do. They just come up, center of the Earth, we live on an ellipsoid. No, you can't do it. It's contradiction right here. So, I gave that presentation. That was the end of the presentation. But what happened was, the next day, it appears that butthead Toady Retard convinced Beavis the Rumpus to join forces and cook up an incoherent 25-minute presentation, attempting to debunk my 2-minute claim against Toady Retard. And like I said, I did that yesterday. We're a little bit time hacked here. Don't worry about the yesterday part. It was about 3 or 4 days ago. So Beavis the Rumpus, he kept saying QE's 3 points. What 3 points? I only had 1 point, like I just went over. Elevation is not measured from the center of the Earth. That was my entire point. It took 2 minutes, but it's taken them 30. So what I want you to do, Nathan, go ahead and share your screen, and we're going to pull up what Toady said. He's going to read this exact same statement right here off my presentation. So he's going to read that statement. Let's see if he reads it correctly. So go ahead and stop at 14:30.
chat. I didn't type this out, or you know what I mean, send it in as a physics paper. But let me just read the bit that I said, and then we can discuss that, Rumpus. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to read out what's read?
Yeah.
What's
So I'll read it out. I can read it.
Ah.
Nathan and QE tried to debunk the fact. This is what I said the other day. Nathan and QE tried to debunk the fact that there was no Earth curve using Google. It's moving around. Rumpus.
Sorry, I
Google
was trying to make it bigger.
Make it better. Which is a WGS-84 projection of an oblate spheroid onto the Earth, and they think that they should see drop, right? And as I keep saying, if you were at sea level 0, wherever you are on the sea, and you sailed halfway around the globe, you're still pretty much going to be at sea level 0 because you're at sea level. And the oblate spheroid, which I talked about above, is pretty much, and pretty much, but it isn't actually done, taken from the center of the Earth. And
Right. So did you guys catch that? You probably didn't. He didn't read the statement correctly. Everything after the globe right here. Hey, Nathan, go ahead and share my screen. Let me know when it's up.
Yep, you're on.
So you probably didn't catch it, but that's okay. We're just going to go over it again. What I want you to do is, my screen's up, correct?
Yeah.
I want you to go ahead and reload that same part of that video, and I want you to play it at 0.75 speed.
These are the points that he was making.
so let me just read through what it is that I said the other day on a chat. And obviously this is on a chat. I didn't type this out, or you know what I mean, send it in as a physics paper. But let me just read the bit that I said, and then we can discuss that, Rumpus. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to read out what's read?
So I'll read it out. I can read it.
Ah.
Nathan and QE tried to debunk the fact. This is what I said the other day. Nathan and QE tried to debunk the fact that there was no Earth curve using Google. It's moving around. Rumpus.
Sorry, I
Google
was trying to make it bigger.
Make it better. Which is a WGS-84 projection of an oblate spheroid onto the Earth, and they think that they should see drop, right? And as I keep saying, if you were at sea level 0, wherever you are on the sea, and you sailed halfway around the globe, you're still pretty much going to be at sea level 0 because you're at sea level. And the oblate spheroid, which I talked about above, is pretty much, and pretty much, but it isn't actually done, taken from the center of the Earth. And really, it relates to mean sea level. But what we're going to do is we're going to explain a little bit more detail.
Stop it.
Yep.
Right. So did everyone see what he did? He was reading it right off the screen, right off of my presentation, right? And he changed it up, right? Everything after the globe, he made up. He didn't read this. This is my argument. But the basis of my entire argument was what you said previously, but that's not what you said. What did you think you were going to get away with this? So everything was the same, right? He said everything the same right here, up to the globe, and then he added this. You're still pretty much going to be at sea level 0 because you're at sea level, and the oblate spheroid, which I talked about above, is pretty much pretty much, but it isn't actually done, taken from the center of the Earth. Crayon muncher, you see what you said right here? It's taken from the center of the Earth, like my argument against you. And what you said now, it isn't actually taken from the center of the Earth. You see the problem there? Are you some kind of doofus or something? Do you think no one noticed? Yeah, you know what? I know that's what you think, because no one held you to task. You even read it right from the screen. And I'm not blaming you because you're a crayon munching retard. Who I am blaming are the people that listened to this and seen it and didn't call you out. I mean, this was a blatant lie right in front of everyone. What happens when you have subtle lies? These people can't even critically think or get through those. This is a slap in the face issue, brother. My word, people. So, like I said, are you kidding me? You think we wouldn't have caught that? Unbelievable. Let's go a little bit further. So on time 30 minutes, Beavis to Rumpus, this is what he says. It gives you your elevation from this, not from the center of the Earth, which some people say. Yeah, some people like your partner here, toady retard, right? Let me say it again. Toady retard. And as I keep saying, if you went at sea level 0, wherever you are on the sea, and you sailed halfway around the globe, it's still 0 because you're still at sea level because it's taken, from the center of the earth, right? Rumpus, you didn't catch this. That's rhetorical, by the way. And we have the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia Georgi, who did like a 45-minute presentation talking about this exact issue. Georgie, all points at the same elevation on a spherical Earth are all the same distance away from the center of the Earth. This is what we call level, right? This is really a joke. Time 3037. Beavis the Rumpus again. He is me. QE then tries to make a point that some people have said that elevation is from the center of the Earth. Yeah, some people, like your partner here, Toady Retard. You see this? It's taking, from the center of the Earth. And again, the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia Georgi. The distance away from the center of the Earth. The same elevation. You getting this, Rumpus? Clown. Here we go again. Time 3054, Beavis the Rumpus. He, me, QE, found one glober that said that is, elevation, was relative to the center of the Earth, right? Nah. I found 4 bonehead globers saying it. Number 1, your partner here, remember? Sea level 0 at sea level. Why? Because it's taken, from the center of the Earth. And again, the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia Georgi, right? You got the same elevation, taken where? From the center of the Earth. Then we got Lewis Wackett. Elevation is the distance away from the center of the Earth, from Discord. Parroting the same shit he heard from Georgie, right? And then Mvrot Screech from Discord. Elevation is measured from the center of the Earth. You got everyone parroting this now, right? So it's not just one glober. Again, 3112, we got butthead Toady Retard talking. Check this out. I think QE was trying to make the point that I was wrong in saying that because we do live on an ellipsoid, he was saying that we should expect to see drop. No, I didn't say that. I didn't mention a word or even remotely imply drop in my 2-minute presentation for my claim, as everyone just listened to again. I said that you claimed elevation was measured from the center of the Earth. Shocking, I know. And I was using the ellipsoid to show that your Mr. Magoo contradictory claims were bollocks, like I showed. So I don't know, are you on some type of medication or something? Did you actually listen to the charges brought against you? Doesn't appear so. This is classic. At 3157, to round this out, Beavis the Rumpus. His point was, again, QE's point was, how can you then claim that your elevation is with respect to the center of the Earth? I don't know how he could claim that, Rumpus. Butthead Toady Retard immediately replies, I'm not and never did. What? Beavis the Rumpus, exactly. Really, liars. He just did it. You just read it. Of course, you didn't actually read your own claim, right? Let me read it again, just partly. The end is the main part. Butthead Toady Retard. And as I keep saying, if you went at sea level 0, wherever you are on the sea, and you sailed halfway around the globe, it's still 0. Because you're still at sea level, because it's taken, from the center of the Earth. Unbelievable. In conclusion, you're not only a Mr. Magoo retard, Toady, you're a demonstrated weasel and a liar. Straight up. There's no way you can get out of this. I mean, unless you get Jose to delete the video, right? Unbelievable. The Baltard Triple Ground. Congrats. Your parents must be prouder than game roosters, Toady. You're done. Twice dead. Toe tagged. That's it.
Cool. I do want you to just bring up the ellipsoid picture again, though, if you would, please.
Oh, yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Then I'll get some remarks from the other Ballbusters. So, just in summary, because you've heard the words "from the centre of the Earth" quite a few times in that presentation, they're all claiming elevation is measured from the centre of the Earth. It's an ellipsoid. They're all different measurements. It's never going to be the same. They're all wrong. When Rumpus declares that John has gone and got this quote from one globetard, wrong, as demonstrated by the presentation. There are multiple globetards. M. Scott Veitch and George also say this and make presentations on it. It's only because John's called them on it that they're having to make 25-minute double-speak presentations about it.
Yeah, but his partner right beside him was the one that made the initial claim. It was right on screen. I don't know, dude. I mean...
Well, let's see if we've got any comments from the Ballbusters. Ladies first. Paula?
Not really. It seems pretty simple. I mean, when you have direct quotes from people and they say one thing and then they say the opposite, and then they argue against the argument you did not make, which is a straw man, what else can you say? I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so did he cherry pick his own quote?
No. What he did was he changed it in midstream. I don't know how they let him do that because my claim was right on the screen. He was reading it right off the screen.
Yeah, that's why I say it's a cherry pick from his own.
He didn't cherry pick. He just conjured something else.
Yeah, and made a different ending to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't even care. No one called him on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've just put it back up on screen just to make that point again. So yeah, he's literally changing the words you quoted. So he's got your video with his words typed out in quotes on screen when he changes the very words he uses. And Rumpus says, yeah, of course, it's from one globetard. No. Maybe you'd like to take it up with M. Scott Veitch. Maybe you'd like to take it up with George. Maybe you'd like to take it up with Toady, the guy who was actually sat next to you when you did this presentation, Rumpus.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot one thing too. I forgot. Remember. So, where do they measure? What's their benchmark? Since they don't have a benchmark, what's their benchmark they measure from? Here's what they measure from. This is Rumpus's cartoon, right? This red dotted line right here, this little shifty thing on his cartoon, this is their benchmark elevation. Can you believe this? I was shocked that he put this up on screen. What the hell is this?
I just need to ask Adam. Can you see that, Adam? Is that anything referenceable that you used for your calculations by any chance? This cartoon conjured by Rumpus?
No, it's just fantasy, isn't it? And
Just
fact,
made it up.
by its own definition, it bears no resemblance to the reality it's trying to portray. I was going to add a bit, guys. I think I've covered it in the previous thing, but it was just probably to quantify a little bit. If you could put that other ellipsoid back up for us a sec, John.
Yeah, hold up.
Because obviously the ballers are going to say it's nowhere near that kind of exaggerated ellipsoid, and I don't think we're suggesting it is. That's a diagram that's there to exemplify the point. Now,
Exactly.
what they're going to say is that it's less than 1/3% the difference in the two axes, radius measurements between the major and minor. And if you look on there, I think that's in meters, isn't it? 6,378 kilometers and 6,356. I took 6,357 and 6,3. I rounded up correctly actually, so that's fine. And 6,378 as my two differences. And remember, we're talking about the distance between their supposed centre of the Earth, and
Hold on a second, Adam. I can hardly hear what you're saying. You've got loads of popping and stuff going from your mic. I don't know if you're just too close to your mic or something, but most of it's wind noise at the moment.
Yeah. Is that better?
A little bit.
So we've got those two differential radiuses or distances to the centre of the Earth. And it doesn't seem a lot when you look at it and call it less than 1/3%. But the reality is that the distance to the centre of the Earth from the North Pole and the distance to the centre of the Earth from the equator has a differential of 21 kilometres or 13 miles. Now that, when you then try to apply that across any area, like we've demonstrated on the Google Earth, straight line sea level maps, that's massive, because once again, if you're going to put that differential in, then it actually does make a difference. So if you were drawing that line, there would be a 13-mile difference, additional difference, not taken into the curvature, but just additional difference created by their supposed WGS84 ellipsoid.
All right, we good?
We are good. I was going to ask a question with this picture that's on now, which is to say that didn't they make some reference to drop that their WGS84 is giving them this dotted line referencing level? What a joke that is. I mean, that's absurd. But there we go. That's a different point. But correct me if I'm wrong. If you were standing where it says topographic surface, and then you looked to the left of this screen in Muppet Vision, you'd be observing drop, would you not?
I don't know. You're going to have to ask Mel Blanc here.
If you look at that picture, actually, look. If you look at the centre turd, and imagine you stood on the topographic surface line, and then go to your left, look, where the line intersects the water. That's sea level. That's sea level on the centre turd. But look, sea level is represented as a number of meters above before it intersects. Look, the sea level's above the water.
Are we going to evaluate this cartoon?
No, stop it.
I think we need to stop this. Yeah, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to show that. So we're good with that.
I think that's it. Unless there's any further comments, any of the Ballbuster comments. No.
Nope.
Nope. Yeah, what's the comment? I mean, just straight out lied. No one called him out on. This guy's a clown, people. So twice dead, toe tag. Let's get to another guy. Are we ready to roll?
What I'll do is, just so I can cut them out and trim them out nicely, I'll pause for a moment. So on to the second toe tag.
So we got Jim Panda, right? Now this has been going on for some time now. I think it's about 6 or 7 weeks, where Jim Panda right here claimed birds humping natural experiments, right? So, these guys right here, like he mentioned, birds, we want to see this one's getting his freak on, we're looking for these, right? And I challenged him for 6 weeks concerning these guys. Say, I want to see it. And his whole point here is that he was talking smack about the scientific method. There's many different scientific methods, that nonsense. We can't, what he said here is we can't use that. And what he was referencing was the scientific method to do things like natural experiments. When we make, large studies of, the breeding patterns of birds for existence, right? So he's trying to say that, well, this is still science. We just can't use the scientific method, right? Which is total nonsense. So I started calling him out. I wanted to see the natural experiments, and I did for like 6 weeks. So when I was on Ranty's presenting, he was in the chat, and he started saying, he started giving me his rigmarole. I already presented you natural experiments, right? So that led to this. So in the original presentation, I presented, as soon as he said natural experiments, I said, okay, let's check these out. So we'll go from your alma mater wiki. Natural experiments are a different type of quasi-experiment design used by researchers. It differs from person-by-person treatment in a way that there is not a variable that is being manipulated by the experimenter, right? We already know this is pseudoscience because it doesn't have an independent variable right off the bat. And you see this word right here? This gives the game away if you didn't catch this. Right? Quasi from Oxford dictionaries, seemingly, apparently, but not really. Synonym quasi, Merriam-Webster, pseudo, not real or genuine, sham, spurious. So this isn't an experiment, Gimp Panda, is the point I'm trying to make. Now, let's go to one of your peer-reviewed studies from the Journal of Epidemiology, Community Health. Let's read this. The term natural experiment lacks an exact definition. Red flags should be starting to pop up, right? My word. And many variants are found in the literature. The common thread in most definitions is that exposure to the event or intervention of interest has not been manipulated by the researcher. So we already know what this means. It's not an experiment. It doesn't have an independent variable, right? And like I told him, a lot of these natural experiments, quote unquote, they use in epidemiology, right? Suicide prevention, air pollution control, public smoking bans, and alcohol taxation. Does that sound like physics to you? Biochemistry to you? No. Well, there's a reason why it doesn't. My word. From the Encyclopedia Britannica, natural experiments are used most commonly in the fields of, like I said, epidemiology, political science, psychology, and social science. Right? Are these actual sciences? No. In other words, Jim Retard, natural experiments are not scientific experiments. Duh. Meaning, McFly, it's not friggin' science. That's my whole point. That's the whole entire point. So again, where's the birds humping natural experiment, Jim? I asked for this for about 6 weeks via Discord. He came out with a QE debunking video, right? This guy and his cronies couldn't debunk a soup sandwich. Showing 10 titles of papers, just the titles of the papers. Wouldn't go into the paper because he doesn't know what he's reading. Exclaiming birds breeding natural experiments. And he thought he was good to go. Yep, QE's debunked. That's it. A friggin' clown. And this is what he said a week ago. Gimp Panda, he's QE, rejecting these natural experiments because I need to go through each one and show him the independent variable is, the dependent variable is, the hypothesis is, and all that. When, of course, these natural experiments, they don't have these isolated variables because they're natural experiments. If I comply with what he's saying, I won't be giving him natural experiments, and therefore I won't be complying with what he's actually asking me for. I mean, this guy is full on retard, brothers. This crayon muncher has clearly, laughingly lost the plot. Jeremy, I wasn't saying that natural experiments of birds humping or crickets jerking off didn't exist. I was gently saying that it wasn't friggin' science. My word. You see this? From the University of Rochester Physics Lab. The scientific method distinguishes science from other forms of explanation because of its requirement of systematic experimentation. So, Jeremy, to be science, it has to be experiment. But you already admitted up above that natural experiments are not experiments. You don't have any variables, right? You just train wrecked yourself above. Let's just do this for general purpose. So, experiment, right? To be science. Experiment from Penn State. What do you need? Every experiment. Dependent, independent control variables. From the Institute of Physics. What do you need for the experiment? And a cause and effect relationship, which birds humping isn't. Independent variable, dependent variable, control variables. From Anne-Marie Helmstein, PhD, biomedical science, experiment, 3 types, controlled, independent, dependent variables. Looks like we're getting a repeating refrain here. From GCSE, chemistry, what are the 3 main variables? Scientific experiment, again, independent, dependent, controlled. Experiment, explorable.com, shocking, independent, dependent, and control variables in your experiment. From the National Science Teachers Association, scientific experiment. What a surprise, sit down. Dependent, independent, constants or control variables. From the University of North Carolina, experiment, independent, dependent, IV, DV. You get it now? I doubt it. I truly doubt it. I'm done with you. I was done with you 3 years ago when you didn't know your ass from a damn pipe wrench. But now it's official. You've been toe tagged. Take a hike. That's it.
Are you trying to say that a scientific experiment needs an independent variable, a dependent variable, and control variables? Is that what you're trying to say? It wasn't 100% clear.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'm glad I summarised. You didn't make it that clear.
Jeez, oh man. Unbelievable.
I just want to add something to that, which is to say that the fields of pseudoscience or quasi-science are going to make it seem like they're science. So they're going to use these terminologies very loosely, and they're going to make it apply to their field, because the word science is really powerful. And if you haven't got it, you're going to want to pretend you've got it. So you're going to find this word experiment and science scattered all over the place. I've been looking to buy tyres recently, and on every other video the dude testing tyres says, let's do some science, while he drives around a track. It's used and abused. The acid test is whether it's actually science. Does it have an independent variable, the thing you presume is going to cause the effect you observed in step 1 of the method? And if you vary it and it does cause the effect, you've done science. If you don't, you haven't. Ballbusters assemble.
Yeah, I think they just don't understand the difference between, like we've said 100 times before, an observation or study, which is what ology is. I mean, when you have ornithology, study of birds, it's the study of birds, not the experimentation of birds. And they don't even look at the terms that they use. Ornithology. I mean, it's looking at something and observing it and studying it. That's not the experiment. That's not an experiment. And as you just said, calling it science is really disingenuous on one level, or at least a lack of understanding or sloppy terms. None of those things are compatible with proving anything. So if they are saying they're doing science, then they have to be doing scientific method. And if they're not, they're just doing a study, an ology. And then they'll say, well, you're doing semantics now because apparently words don't have to have meaning anymore when we want to say something's a proof without meeting our own standards of it, which is what they do. So it's a tangled mess.
That was a really good summary, Paula. Absolutely spot on.
Thanks.
I think they are mixing up the first step of the scientific method, that you have to observe a natural phenomena, and that they think that that's a natural experiment follows. I think that's sometimes what I think, which is dumb, of course.
Right, brace yourself for wind noise. Adam, any comments?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Paula stole my thunder. Exactly the point. All I was thinking as John was going through that was, if I'd have tried to submit any paper back in the day, or put any report in like that and titled it experiment, I'd have been given short shrift and informed it was a study. It's an observational thing that's going off there, and it's again not using the word science but using the word experiment here, and the validity of what an experiment is. And you can understand why the ornithologists and the likes are quite happy to grab onto the word experiment to superficially validate what they're studying. So you can see why there's not the critique within the discipline itself. But again, it's a dilution of the true meaning to try and bump up some validation or claim that they're falsely labeling. And I think I'd echo Paula's word. It is that the way this should be labeled is a study of birds humping.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're a fraudster, you don't tend to want to call yourself fraudster. You want to call yourself accountant or lawyer, and then you want to use some of their terminologies, but it doesn't make it so. Now, the fact that it's tolerated in academia in the modern times is neither here nor there. The reality is the terminology they're using is inaccurate and a hijacking of an empirical method. And why would you want to use that terminology? Well, because it's an empirical method. So as soon as you use those words, people will instinctively believe that you've proven what you say, when in fact you've just done a study.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a second grade linguistic word game to try to fool you, because as soon as you say words, people get mental pictures, right? I don't know about others, but I do. If you say a word, I'm going to get a picture of what you're talking about. If you say science to me, I immediately think experiment. That's immediately where I go, right?
Right.
Experimental validation. This is true. This is valid. That's what I think about. I don't know about anyone else.
Well, they tie it to the pictures as well. So when you see a picture of the blue marble, it'll often have the word science in the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do a couple of quick shout-outs. So we've got MC Universe, who says, religion, regional, not a coincidence. Fair enough. Shout-out for the super chat there, MC Universe. Really appreciate your support. And also Charlie James, who doesn't actually say anything, but just wants to give me money. Thank you very much for your support, Charlie. Really appreciate it. We ready for the next presentation, QE?
Yeah. Yep. Let me know when it's up.
Lite, you're up.
Flight, yeah, Adam's favorite, right, Adam? Too funny, man.
I don't mind flight. It's that bloody word after Ballbusters / Coriolis. That's the one I
hate. Yeah. We're going to get to Coriolis right after this one.
Oh, whoopee. Go on, then.
Yeah, and I'm going to unveil my new 5-step plan, so stay tuned. But first, we're going to deal with flight. Now, I went over this before, right? This is real easy proof. I like using this with just your regular everyday Joes, because this puts them back on their heels real quick, because everyone, for the most part, has flown somewhere, right? So everyone can relate to this very easily. So, since the Earth is, as we're told, a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, the radius is 3959 miles, then pilots traveling for 1 hour at a typical cruising speed of 500 miles an hour to simply maintain altitude would constantly have to adjust their altitude downwards to compensate for the curvature and descend on average 2,789 feet every minute. Now, to negotiate this drop, I really don't care what the plane does. The plane can barrel roll, it can do split S's, wing overs, tail slides, slow rolls, Cuban 8, falling leaf, the Chandeli, or the hokey pokey, but it must descend. And everyone on the plane will know it. Is that clear, retards? My word. A, how many miles of vertical drop, geometric drop, must be negotiated over a distance of 500 miles on a ball with a circumference of 25,000 miles? Answers, 31.7 miles. How many feet are in 31.7 miles? Answer, 167,376 feet. This is all simple math according to your globe theatrics. So, 167,376 feet of vertical drop must be negotiated over 500 miles on your spinning ball Earth. So, let's do a real-world scenario. I'm traveling by commercial plane from Pittsburgh, PA to Atlanta, Georgia for the Super Bowl. Approximate distance is around 500 miles. 2, the typical cruising speed is 500 miles an hour. So 500 miles distance at 500 miles per hour equals a travel time of 1 hour. I know that's difficult for you globeheads. So, question, how many feet of vertical drop per minute on average needs to be negotiated on my trip? How can we figure that out? So B, total feet, vertical drop over 500 miles. We already established this at 167,376 feet. Travel time equals 1 hour. Simple calculation, 167,376 feet divided by 60 minutes. Answer is 2789.6 feet. Vertical drop per minute average must be negotiated by the plane on my trip. End of story. We can go home. Does this happen? Nope. The sphere is a stone cold fairy tale right here. Can't get out of it. B, let's do another one. How many miles of vertical drop, that's geometric drop, must be negotiated over a distance of 1,000 miles on a ball with a circumference of 25,000 miles? Answer, 128.3 miles. How many feet are in 128.3 miles? Answer, 600,777,424 feet. Right? So, 600,777,424 feet of vertical drop must be negotiated over 1,000 miles on the spinning ball Earth. Let's do another real world. I'm traveling by commercial plane from Pittsburgh, PA to Dallas, Texas. Approximate distance, 1,000 miles. 2, typical cruising speed, again, 500 miles an hour. A, so 1,000-mile distance at 500 miles per hour equals a travel time of 2 hours. That's 120 minutes. So, question, how many feet of vertical drop per minute on average needs to be negotiated on my trip? How do we do that? Total feet, vertical drop over 1,000 miles equals 677,424 feet. Travel time, 2 hours. Simple calc. 677,424 feet divided by 120 minutes. Answer, 5,645 feet vertical drop over a mile per minute average must be negotiated by the plane on my trip. Does this happen? Alice in Wonderland is more tenable than the honorable Baltard spinning space monkey religion. The prosecution rests simple. You live in a fairy tale. The end. Comments, questions?
I like fairy tale. It's the globe person's fairy tale. I love that.
Yep.
Betty?
Nope, nothing to add.
Paula?
Not really. All I ever hear people say when they see similar presentations that he's done in the past is, well, the calculations are wrong. But they don't demonstrate that the calculations are wrong. So there you go.
Well, we've got a resident mathematician. Adam?
The calculations are correct. However, what they purport is a statistical impossibility for reality. So that's why they get decried and attacked, because they're an impossibility to occur in reality with the final statistical analysis of huge drop per minute.
Are you trying to say there is no drop?
No. Yeah. No, I'm saying that it's how do I put it? Let me give you an analogy. If you were to say take 10 litres of milk, and you're going to drink 1 litre per minute, and you've got 10 minutes to drink it. So you could drink 1 litre per minute, or you could drink 8 litres in the first minute and wait and drink the rest at the end, and do it how you want. There's lots of variables, and in reality those variables are perfectly acceptable to be played out in reality. You can drink that at any rate you want. But the trouble with travelling across a ball is that the amount of the drop is cumulative. So, for example, we talk about 8 inches per mile. Well, the last mile, if you were to travel from the North Pole to the equator, the last mile, you would actually only be traveling 8 inches forwards in reality, in terms of how it's distributed in the mathematics of drop and everything. So when you take a journey, and that's why you've got 2 different answers for the journey times and distances. You've got a different average per drop. It's only applicable to that journey on the whole distance. It's the statistical inference per minute isn't applicable because, for example, if you started at 30,000 feet and you flow for the first 10 minutes at the first rate of, say, 2,000, call it 3,000 feet per minute you've got to drop, after the first 10 minutes you'd be in the ground because you haven't accrued the amount of drop yet. Does that make sense? It's not applicable to real life, that particular statistic of per minute, because the per minute only applies to the overall journey. So yeah, for example, that's a great example there. If you can see, look, if you get halfway across the journey, you can start to apply.
Hey, sorry, Adam. Go ahead. Hey, Nathan, pull up my screen, man.
I'm on it.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, Adam.
Yeah, no, cool. So look, like I said, the numbers are correct, but when you then turn it per minute, you can't in reality do it per minute because you'd hit the ground to have to because it's an average and most of the drop is at the end of the journey. If you tried to apply the average at the beginning of the journey, as you see there, you'd hit the ground.
Oh, right.
So that's the criticism of it.
That's not a criticism, though, because everyone knows that's flown on a plane.
Hold on.
The flight is level.
Yeah. That's not what he's saying, though. Adam's saying this is their criticism. He's not saying it's valid.
As a statistician, you can't make that statement. That would be the point, because it's not something you can apply to the reality you're doing it to. All of the rest of the maths is correct.
Right.
Okay, and there's no fault there. It's just that like I said, when you drink in the milk, you can drink the milk at whatever rate because it's just one solid thing that's there to consume. The drop is accumulating over time.
Right.
At the beginning point, there's not the milk there to drink.
Yeah, right. I'm following you. I got you. So do you want me to reword it?
No, I think it's a perfectly valid criticism. It's something that me, John, and Rob in Australia used to argue about for ages because John wouldn't have it either. And I think it's a really good point for us to all just understand it. It's still valid because that if you're flying straight, that huge cumulative drop that we talk about still has to be applied somewhere. It's actually statistically what you're having to say is that actually for the second part of the journey, you've probably got to double that amount of drop because
right, exactly, yeah.
It's
Can I
just
just add one further point to that, Adam?
correctness, but that's where it'll be attacked. That.
Can I just add one further point to that?
Yeah.
So, taking a step back, the mathematics for what potentially should happen on a globe for this journey requires that you reify that you live on a globe and then calculate it mathematically like you did with your milk. The reality is, while you can calculate the rate of descent of the milk down your gullet into your stomach, you can't consume 8 litres of milk. As much as you can calculate how fast the rate would be should you consume milk, or how much drop there would be if we were on a sphere. We're not on a sphere, and you can't drink 8 litres of milk. Doesn't matter about the maths.
All right, I'm following you, yeah.
Well, planes don't have to account for drop.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
By level flight. That's the reality in that analogy.
Exactly.
There's no requirement for any form of level flight where the accrued drop ever has to be applied, whether it's on an average, the beginning, or at the end. It is never applied.
Precisely. There's no need to argue about the mathematics once you've reified a model that doesn't actually take place in reality. Nobody's travelling with squared function or otherwise. What would you call yours, Adam, as opposed to squared function?
Mine's a combination of calculating distance travelled across the circumference and its relative position to any central radius. So it's a combination of trigonometry and just basic ball math.
Uh-oh, you're going to have a problem.
Hold on, squared function versus relative to relative to radial center. What did you say?
Yeah, okay, so see where R is. Okay, so if you look at this diagram here, so what I would do is generate an angle from the center of the Earth to the point where D intersects the circumference from R. That will generate an angle, yeah? From that angle, yeah, you're then going to use that angle you can then back work to give you a take your distance you're observing. Your distance you observe then back works the angle. From the angle then you can see that the point of intersection D, if you draw a straight line across to intersect with R, there's a point of intersection, and that splits the radius. Okay, and it's the calculation of, so there's your ball maths, and then it's the calculation of splitting this radius that you then use trigonometry to calculate the lower half, which isn't the bit you want the upper half, the bit that's relative to the drop, D, as you see on the right-hand side. So then you use trigonometry to calculate that and then subtract it from your radius. So that's how my formula works. This on this side is, I don't know, this is just an approximation again, isn't it?
Yeah, remember, this is the Pontiff Maximus from Retardia, Georgie. He did a whole presentation on this.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, to coin a phrase, you beautiful bastard, John, in terms of the ordering of this. So, Adam, given that it's using R and the ordering of today's presentations, can you spot the problem here?
Yeah, it all requires a presupposition. As I start my presentation with, on a presupposed, a fictional.
No. Yes, that's absolutely true. So I'm not going to say no. Yes, absolutely. You require a radius that you presuppose. Yes, but given the order of presentations that we've had today, specifically, can you see the problem?
I hate it when you lead me, Nathan.
I'll lead you a bit more. Okay, we started off by talking about Toady and Rumpus and M. Scott Veitch and the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia, George. Talking about the distance from the centre of the Earth, did we not, Adam? Yeah. Is that enough leading?
It's all contradictory bullshitticus.
Bullshitticus. You caught me with that one, Adam. Good one. All right.
Honestly, to try and comprehend, it is, to me, it's very strange how they don't see or comment honestly on these contradictions. They're quite clearly there. It's not a ball earther or a flat earther's perspective. It's the perspective from a mathematical point of view. These differences in the way they calculate, tweak and use one thing and another, and how it actually contradicts and undermines its own thing is very odd to me. And it's the thing that, like I say, this is what started me on this journey. It's the thing that said to me, it's flat.
I'm hoping to get a few of the ladies' opinions, Betty and Paula, especially in regards to what Adam just said, because it's now been mentioned twice by Adam and by John, in respect to them not calling each other on this. So specifically at the beginning of Ballbusters, we had John pointing out that during a presentation, literally in the moment while they're together on screen, as it were, the one isn't calling the other on their nonsense in real time. And that's where they get labelled liars. So I just wanted to get either or, maybe if we start with you, Paula, how you feel about that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's the age-old human problem of not wanting to criticize people you like and not seeing what they're doing and not wanting to confront them about it, especially online recorded. But the problem is, being online and recorded, that's how it was called, how and why it was called out. It should have been called out because there it was on the screen. The person was purporting to read it and absolutely changed the words and changed the argument. And yeah, this should be called out. That's supposedly what debates do, is people calling each other out for holes in their arguments. But they are not doing that consistently to their own side, as they would say that we also don't do it to our side. And in some cases, maybe that's true. But here we have people purporting to refute something, and in so doing, creating a straw man, and numerous other fallacies that have already been mentioned. And this is disingenuous. And so, again, why would we give them the time of day when they've shown such unwillingness to even correct themselves? Is I think the greater question, not to mention the fact that they still don't understand the difference between a tangent line and what they define as level as parallel to the surface of a presupposed curve. Never mind that. They're just, not confronting each other on and cleaning up their own mess, which gets back to the problems in the flat earth side, where someone wants to call something science and gets called out for it. And unlike the baller side not calling them out for it, and then there are splits and hurt egos and all sorts of things. But, maybe they've seen that on our side and decided not to do it. I don't know. I think it's just willful blindness on their part, on their own side.
I will come to you in a second, Betty, but I just want to add something to that, Paula, which is to say that, why would we give them the time of day? Well, shout out to Jose, JG, and Gonzalez. I know that John has noted in the past that you've only got to give them enough rope and they will hang themselves. In other words, they've only got to be given the opportunity to open their mouths, and Jose does exactly that. So a big shout out to you, Jose. We don't have to give them the time of day in this instance, thanks to Jose in this regard.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. Betty?
Yeah, I didn't understand quite what you wanted us to say. I mean, so can you repeat again what you really want me to comment on?
I was asking about the fact that they didn't call each other out. So they're literally in the middle of the presentation. Toady changes the words that he said that he was being quoted on, and it's in specific reference to the measurement of what they call level. I can't say it without even laughing. Right, distance to the centre of the Earth. But while Rumpus is literally pointing out that nobody says this, somebody has said it in that very show within a few moments. So they're not calling each other out, and I wanted to kind of get your opinion mostly, anything to do with the presentation to do with planes or mathematics or globe Earth in general, but that was kind of, without being sexist, because you're women, I want to know how that made you feel. I know it's not about feelings and all that bullshit, but nevertheless, it's one of those that we've got an audience, and the reason motivation behind me asking that question is because they don't have the truth on their side. That's the main point, the overarching point, the reason for me asking for your feelings on them lying about this.
Yeah, lying. Yeah, well, people call people liars very easily in this community, or whether it is the ballers or flat earthers, I think. And I think a lot of it has to do with pride, basically. And I know that I think that I know that that's the reason also why that Toady didn't read that quote out, because he knew that Rumpus was already or had already said that it was not measured from the center of the Earth. So it's a sort of a cover-up to be belonging to that community. And I think that a lot of people tend to lie to belong to a community and to not be exiled for that community, to be different. And if you're different, if you stand out, people tend to want to attack you more. And if you're afraid of that, then you will be attacked, then you will conform. That's the whole psychology behind it, I think. It's pride, mainly, and not wanting to be standing out and having a different opinion. And I think that flat earthers in general are the ones that stand out because they had to go through a lot of ridicule to even come to the conclusion and to go against all these people that said they knew the truth. So it's about that, I think.
And isn't that what the whole community, quote unquote, has been doing from the start? Because that's what mainstream science does. It falsifies, it protects careers. I mean, even among their own, such as on the Big Bang versus plasma or electric universe, there's, people who used to be in that academic environment pulled away finally and said enough is enough. We don't your theory of Big Bang has too many bypasses to it, too many what they call multiplied hypothetical entities, which means made up stuff to keep the theory, and abandons the scientific method by refusing to have a way to falsify it. And so this is a huge problem even on their own side at every level, that they don't want to ever give up on a theory because they have too much invested in it. And so I think it's more than just cognitive dissonance and goes beyond even just ego. It is a worldview. There was a science course that I took called 7 Ideas That Shook the Universe. It was about physics and ideas of physics that changed everybody's world, and that it had been done 7 times in history so far. And there was a BBC series called The Day the Universe Changed by David Burke, I think. It was well presented, but it went over the whole repeating process of people resisting having their world changed. And it's all ideas the whole time. It's just hypothetical entities. It's just made up, paradigms, and it can't have anything to do with reality, or it wouldn't change. And that's what they're protecting. And it seems to be a multi-generational thing that people don't want to let go of. And throughout history, of course, there have been people who did that, and they get persecuted. That's what happens. I mean, people who invent engines that run on water or something like that, they wind up dead. Yeah. So this is the kind of mentality that we've always been dealing with, I think.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of a paradigm change, and I think it's been slowly ramping up for the last 50 or 60, maybe even longer years. I'm going to shout out a few super chats, and then if it's okay by everyone on the Ballbusters panel, I will get a few comments from the Discord server or the public in general on that particular presentation. So first shout out to David Gafford, who says, God gave us our senses, up to us to use them. Indeed. And then 5 Angels, thank you very much indeed for the super chat, says, Hercules C-130 aircraft uses Honeywell AFCS automatic flight control system. The raw data shows minimal to no correction during straight and level flight. Flight for pitch. Cool. Thank you very much for the super chat, and good comment. Excellent segue back into the comments, hopefully from some people on the Discord server. So I have opened one of the mics already from, let's just see who that chap was. Oh no, everyone's running away. Wave motion gun. I did open your mic if you did have anything to add. Wave motion gun, can you hear us? If not, we'll move over to Righteous Force, see if you've got anything to add. If not, we'll move on to the next presentation. Hi, people in Discord. Hey, Righteous Force.
Nathan, I don't know if...
Hold on, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Hardly... No, nobody's going to say anything from the Discord server. We've got one more new guest. Hello, how you doing? Nope, just lots of shy people. We definitely had sound earlier from Righteous Force's lights flashing, but he's not. I can't hear anything from him, so. Well, we did a sound check, so everything's hunky-dory in Discord. We will hopefully hear some comments from the public. Are you happy to move on, John? Sorry, Adam, did you want to add something?
Not really, no. I've had a response in chat. Tony had been challenging a lot of the stuff or giving rebuttal, so I just invited him to see if he could come into Discord, but he said, no, not polite.
Well, that's fine. If you want to express that person's sentiment, I'd appreciate it, as we haven't had any responses from Discord. I'll keep their mics open, so they might, hopefully, maybe someone will interrupt while you're talking, but we'll see.
Oh, it's fair enough. I was just open to listening to his point. Obviously, I'm interested. I just would like to understand the concept. So
yeah, what point can he have?
Well, I don't, John. To be fair, dude, I don't know. That's why I was asking him, would he want to join Discord? But he's obviously he's scared. I think.
You're done, son. Let me just put it to you plainly. You're done, son. You can't recover. Okay?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to misrepresent
No,
his
it's
or
okay.
position.
It's a religious reasons. He's promised himself he would never come on the show ever. It's on religious grounds, so no problems, pal.
No problem.
You bet.
Fundies,
You
we
get your
get
ass
it.
handed to you. I would like to comment a couple things that Paula said. If you look at the transcript, and every time she says the word theory, just replace that with speculation. And she's 100% correct.
You're getting a finger wagged at you, Paula.
It's just semantics.
Words and their meanings. Who cares, eh? Okay, right. Let's move on. Not spinning. So we're dropping anchor on this, right? We may still be here next week. We shall see. But the Coriolis effect, everybody's favourite subject. You're up. You're presented.
No, we're not. We dropped anchor in here for about 3 weeks. We're not going to discuss this next week. That's for sure.
Okie doke.
We got the big kahuna next week. All right. So we ready? The not spinning.
Well, no, you've teased, and I'm gonna expand on your tease. So You've got to tune in. You've got to spread the word. I'm gonna do adverts. I'm gonna do memes. I'm gonna spread the word far and wide, and I want everybody watching. There's a good couple of 100 people watching. Spread the word. Next week's Ballbusters is gonna be a globeortion. It's gonna be decapitation of some big globe heads. It's gonna be epic. There's gonna be blood. And you've got to spread the word. So when I put those adverts out, make sure you spread them. Tell everyone, spread the word far and wide. Next week's Ballbusters is not going to be one to be missed. Right, I'll put you back up. We're on.
All right, we ready?
We are.
All right, I adjusted this presentation a little bit. It's gonna go a little faster, and we're gonna get to my 5-step plan here. And hopefully, the light bulb's gonna come on for everyone. Okay. That's my hope. So, not spinning. For the Coriolis effect to exist, we're going to concentrate on the Coriolis effect for right now. For the Coriolis effect to exist, you must have, that is, the necessary conditions. Number 1, 2 differing frames of reference, 1 rotating coordinate system, that's non-inertial, the Earth, and 1 non-rotating coordinate system, inertial, that's the atmosphere, and anything in it. We're going to get a good visual on this definition that I'm about to read here in a few minutes. So, from Seagar Douglas, Introduction to Ocean Sciences, this is Critical Concept Reminders. The Coriolis effect. When set in motion, freely moving objects, including air, that's atmosphere, and water masses, clouds, water vapor, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to an apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. To an observer rotating with the Earth, freely moving objects that travel in a straight line appear to travel in a curved path on the Earth. We're going to show this in the wiki GIF here in a few minutes. This is a description of the exact visual GIF. So, in other words, anything not tethered to the Earth is freely moving. 2, the object in question not physically attached to the rotating coordinate system, Earth, appears to deflect, i.e., moves independently of the rotating coordinate system from a vantage point anywhere on the rotating coordinate system, the Earth. So, having said all that, if the Coriolis effect exists, and this is very important, with respect to the Earth, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles nonstop, traveling at 500 miles an hour airspeed, with both locations roughly the 35th degree north latitude, that is, both allegedly spinning at 860 miles an hour, should be 1.5 hours. But it's approximately 4.5 hours. The Charlotte to LA flight, airspeed 500 miles an hour, ground speed 500 miles an hour, plus the 860 mile an hour ground speed that's coming into your face, you have to add those, equals 1,360 miles an hour. So in my example, 2 differing frames of reference, 1, the Earth, 2, the atmosphere, and everything in it. Number 2, the plane in the atmosphere is freely moving. That is, it's not attached to the rotating coordinate system and is flying in a straight path. In other words, based on the law of non-contradiction, the Coriolis effect with respect to the Earth and the Charlotte flight at 1.5 hours are either both true or both false. Simple logic. The flight is most assuredly false. Therefore, the Earth is not spinning. Ergo, the spinning ball goes by way of the dodo bird, or you're a stationary ball geocentrist. Simple. Voila. Now for my new 5-step plan, better known as the 5-point palm globetard exploding fairy tale religion technique. It's brand new. If there's no spin, flat Earth wins. So let's take a look at this. We're going to pull this up before we get to point 1. Go over this for about the 85th time. Right? So I'm going to read it. In the inertial frame of reference, the upper part of the picture, the black ball moves in a straight line. However, the observer red dot, who is standing in the rotating non-inertial frame of reference, the lower part of the picture, sees the object following a curved path due to the Coriolis, right? This is a visual of the definition I just read from Seagard Douglas, correct? Because we have the ball that's traveling the inertial frame of reference, it's going straight. The only reason why you see it curving, it appears to curve, is you are the red dot and you are the one that's curving and rotating. It's just as simple as that. The Coriolis effect is very simple. The Coriolis causes are very basic. Now, like I said a number of times before, in this little spiel here, did you hear any equators? No? How about any longitude and latitude lines? No? What about directions, north, south, east, or west? No? It's the same reason why they don't put jelly beans, gummy bears, and ham sandwiches in here, because jelly beans and ham sandwiches don't have anything to do with the Coriolis effect. Same concept. Everyone's got this. This is very easy to understand. So, my first point, if the Coriolis effect exists on the Earth, then A, the Earth must be spinning, that is the rotating non-inertial frame of reference that we just witnessed, and B, the object affected by the Coriolis effect must be moving through the non-rotating inertial frame of reference, like I just showed, untethered to the rotating non-inertial frame, or reference frame, right? Such as aeroplanes, helicopters, balloons, missiles, bullets, they are not tethered to the Earth. Now, to the audience out there, does everyone understand that airplanes they're kind of not tethered to the Earth when they're flying, are subject to the Coriolis effect? Does everyone understand that? I'm not looking at the chat. Does everyone understand? Well, one or two. Number one, the Coriolis affects planes in flight. And number two, the Coriolis effect doesn't affect airplanes whatsoever. So you can get a read on me, Nathan, if anyone's putting anything in the chat. I'm not looking at it now. What's it looking like? Airplanes are affected or airplanes are not affected? One or two?
Well, the question you're asking is either concede that there is only a single frame of reference and therefore no Coriolis effect, or there is, but I'm not going to steal your thunder, if you know what I mean. But I can't see anybody in the chat to answer your question, so there's nobody in the chat even daring to respond in that regard.
So my claim is airplanes are subject to the Coriolis effect in flight. That's my claim. My support, point 2. From ThoughtCo, the Coriolis effect, also called the Coriolis force, is defined as the apparent deflection of objects such as what? Airplanes, right? So that solves it right there. Moving in a straight path relative to the Earth's surface, because that's what we're talking about. My argument is about airplanes, right? Now watch out. This step 3 is going to be tricky. Point 3. So at this point, as long as it's established, and it is, that airplanes are subject to the Coriolis effect, we now drop the Coriolis effect argument. Let me say that again. We now drop the Coriolis effect argument. It has nothing to do with the rest of this discussion. The actual argument is the Coriolis causes, i.e., the conditions that afford the existence of the Coriolis effect, the two differing frames of reference that I showed you above in the GIF and in all the definitions. So, point 4, the velocity of a plane, airspeed, traveling due east or due west must be either added or subtracted to the velocity of the rotating Earth depending upon the direction of the travel of the plane. That's well down. So if a plane is traveling due west at 500 miles an hour airspeed and the Earth is traveling due east at 860 miles an hour ground speed, the velocities are added together. 500 miles an hour air, 860 miles an hour ground equals 1,360 miles an hour. So a plane traveling due west with an airspeed of 500 miles an hour has a total ground velocity of 1,360 miles an hour. Simple math. Point 5. To find the t, the time the plane flight would take, we use the formula distance equals rate times time. Everyone knows this. Rearranging to solve for t would be d divided by rate equals time. So let's do it. So the distance from Charlotte, North Carolina to LAX is 2,115 miles. The rate from above is 1,360 miles an hour. This is real easy. 2,115 miles divided by 1,360 miles an hour, ergo, the flight time must be 1.5 hours. You got to ask yourself a question now. Does this flight time exist? No. Therefore, the Earth is not spinning, ergo, the spinning ball goes by way of the dodo bird or your stationary ball geocentrist. Simple. Voila. Now, spinning space monkeys. Take 5 steps. Okay, so at this point, I am going to skip the atmosphere spins with the Earth because it's unbelievably nonsensical and it goes against the very definition of the Coriolis effect and the causes thereof. We're going to skip that. We're going to head down to one of my favorites, hurricanes. You know I wasn't going to skip this one. We're going to do this one again. Hopefully some people have called their local meteorologist and challenged them with this. Let's see what they say in Discord. So, you're saying that hurricanes spin in opposing directions in the northern versus southern hemispheres, respectively, due to the Coriolis effect, right? That's what you're saying. I'd sure like some of the angel dust lace shrooms the distinguished space monkeys are snorting. Please focus on these phrases and terms. Apparent deflection, not real, appears, does not actually, in the following citations. We're going to go with Douglas Segar first. Because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to what? An apparent deflection, called the Coriolis effect. To an observer rotating with the Earth, freely moving objects that travel in a straight line appear to travel in a curved path. So we got apparent, appears. Let's go to the University of Oregon and the University of Florida. The effect of the Coriolis force is an apparent deflection of the path of an object that moves within a rotating coordinate system. The object does not actually deviate from its path, but it appears to do so because the motion of the coordinate system. So the University of Florida has taken up league with the University of Oregon. They have the same definitions. Again, apparent deflection does not actually, it appears, right? Still good to go, getting a lot of echoes here. From the Utah State University, the Coriolis force is an imaginary force because objects affected by it are really following a straight path. It is an apparent deflection we see from the vantage point frame of reference of the rotating Earth. From California State, The Coriolis effect describes the apparent deflection, curving of an object traveling in a straight line. Let's finish it on up with encyclopedia.com. Within its rotating coordinate system, the object acted on by the Coriolis effect appears to deflect off its path of motion. This deflection is not real. It only appears to happen because the coordinate system that establishes a frame of reference for the observer is also rotating. So, everyone see these, right? Apparent deflection, it's not real. Does not actually, appears. Everyone's got this, right? Well, there's a problem in Shangri-La. Here comes the punchline, folks. Now, we've all seen these on the nightly news, many of the weather channels, a lot of images and diagrams. These are hurricanes, and they have actual spin directions. That's the important part. These are actual directions, right? In the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere. And like I said before, there is some crossover here. It's an anomaly, no doubt about it. But there are some that spin in opposing directions versus northern versus southern. That's not the point. I digress. The important point here is these are actual directions, actual spin directions. We all know this, right? So what's the problem? What does an actual spin direction, clockwise or counterclockwise, have to do with the Coriolis effect, which is an apparent deflection? Not real, appears, does not actually. Huh? Answer key. Absolutely nothing. They tell you this, folks. There's no cowbell here. In fact, it's contradictory, right? Let me sit here for a couple minutes. In other words, how can clouds be apparently deflecting actually? Right? This statement right here is a contradiction on its face. We don't have to go any further. Let me say it again. In other words, how can clouds be apparently deflecting actually? Unbelievable. Friggin' soup sandwich. Violation of the law of non-contradiction on nuclear steroids. This is tantamount to giving a presentation on quantum numbers with excruciating details on SPD and F orbitals. They're not orbitals, by the way. Then concluding that they are responsible for the creation of facultative anaerobe woodpeckers. People, wake up! Alice in Wonderland is more tenable than the highly decorated ball-tarred spinning space monkey religion. The prosecution rests simple. You live in a fairy tale, the end. P.S. The folk cult pendulum. Let's take this from plusmass.org. Once you set one in motion, its direction of swing will rotate at a rate of about 0.2 degrees every minute. But in fact, it isn't really the pendulum that's rotating. The pendulum is swinging back and forth in exactly the same direction. It's the Earth, which is rotating underneath the pendulum, which makes it appear that the pendulum is in fact changing direction. What does this sound like? Right? What does this sound like? It couldn't have sounded like what we just went over for the past 10 minutes, right? What they're talking about here basically is the Coriolis effect. Well, you got a problem if that's true. Then why couldn't we just hover in a helicopter in North Carolina for 3 hours and catch a Dodger game? Number two, if the folk cult pendulum is legit, which denotes two separate reference frames, right? We've heard that before. The two separate reference frames, the pendulum is swinging back and forth in exactly the same direction, right? It's the Earth which is rotating underneath the pendulum. That's two by my count. If this is true, the folk cult pendulum is true, then get ready. Then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles nonstop, traveling at 500 miles an hour airspeed with both locations roughly 35th degree north latitude, that is both allegedly spinning at 860 miles an hour, should be 1.5 hours, but it's 4.5 hours. Yeah, you've heard this before. We're doing it again. The Charlotte to LA flight, airspeed 500 miles an hour, ground speed, again, 500 miles an hour, plus the 860 mile an hour ledge rotation speed in your face. That has to be added, equals 1,360 miles an hour. The distance between Charlotte, North Carolina and LAX is 2,115 miles. Flight time must be 1.5 hours. Actual flight time is 4.5 hours. Does this 1.5 hour flight time happen? No. Then say bye-bye now to the illustriously dignified and knighted ball-tard spinning space monkey religion. Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
Okay, so again, I'm going to read out a few of the super chats, then I will go across to the Discord server and ask any questions. So if you do want to join, there is a link in the info box below this video. So a big shout out to David Gafford again, who says, oh no, there was another one. Was it? No, I've already read that one. Yes, David Gafford. Globe balls are dropping. No gravity needed, just reality. Indeed. Thank you for the super chat, David Gafford. And then also a super chat from WayBMX, who says, at show 900, we'll be going into knowledge of quantum, which path information is all is. Sorry, this is slightly malformed. I'll read that again. At show 900, will we be going into knowledge of quantum, which path information? Question mark. It all is, and then an emoji of a guy with sunglasses. We're here right now. I don't really understand your statement, WayBMX, but thank you very much for the super chat. Maybe someone else can make sense of it and give you an answer if one is required. Okay, so hello to everybody in the Discord chat. Hopefully you've got some comments. We'll try wave motion again. We'll see if we get anything from you. Hello. Moving swiftly on to Unsalvaracity. Can't read these names. I will get better. Can you hear us? As is so usually the case, might as well say, let's kill the conversation and go to Discord. Hey, Righteous Force.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you now.
I guess I don't have much to say.
Okay.
I've got a question for you, Righteous Force.
Turn your watch page off, sir.
Yeah, somebody in the Discord chat's got their watch page open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Mr. Giggles, is it? Just figure out who's idiotic enough to not have their Discord server. Yes, and Salva, whatever you're called. I've just had to mute you, my friend. Mr. Giggles, was it talking, or was it the guy I've just muted?
The guy you muted.
Yeah, you've got your watch page running, I believe, my friend. Kill YouTube, please.
It's unusual veracity, the guy. That's his name.
Can somebody go ahead and mute him, please?
Yeah, we're gonna have to give up on you, I'm afraid. You've got your mic wide open, your Discord with your live chat.
I've muted him.
No worries. Okay, is that going to be the end of the conversation from Discord, or Mr. Giggles? Did you have something to add? Or you could just come off mute and say absolutely.
This flat Earth is still a thing when the reality is that all maps and navigation are based on a sphere.
Very quiet, my friend. Can you somehow make yourself a bit louder?
Yeah, how's that?
A little better. Go ahead. Go ahead, my friend. Share your pain.
Does that work?
Yes. Yes.
So how is flat Earth idea still going when we know that all navigation and maps is based on a sphere?
Do you want to back that claim?
Navigation is based on a flat plane.
Look it up.
No, it's
The
not.
government.
The maps that you use to fly from place to place are a sphere, the Great Circle route.
Okay,
The government uses a flat plane.
I'm going to need a citation for that.
Well, let's
Now
start
we're
with
going to
your.
need a citation from you.
Yeah, it's you with. Before you start arguing amongst yourselves, so you're saying all navigation is based on a sphere. So how do you back that assertion?
Absolutely. Have you ever used a map?
How do you back this assertion?
I look at a map that works and is accurate with accurate distances, and I see what it's based on.
Show me where the government uses a sphere.
The WGS84 datum is a sphere.
Okay, listen. Number one, do you have any claims, questions concerning the presentation that we just heard on planes and the non-Coriolis effect?
Coriolis effect is real, but you need a large object to demonstrate it, so I don't know what the debate is.
So
Do
what
you have anything
object do
to
we
say-
have larger than
Hold
the
on,
Earth?
there's two people deciding to have a conversation amongst themselves, so we're going to have to either mute everyone's line if you can't let us just address the person that's making the claim. Thanks. So, Coriolis effect specifically was the presentation on, and you said Coriolis effect is real. I didn't catch your reasoning behind why you just stated it was real.
It's a consequence of very simple dynamics.
Yes, so and what is it that would make you assert that it's true on a spinning ball Earth?
Because the different latitudes are moving at different velocities. That's obvious.
And what do you have to back that assertion?
The fact that a smaller radius moves at a slower tangential speed than a larger radius moving at a constant omega, that's basic physics. I don't know what else you need for that.
Hey, Mr. Omega, our argument is not on the Coriolis effect. Did you see my 5-point palm globetard exploding fairy tale religion technique?
You just brought up the Coriolis effect, and now you're saying you're not talking about it?
That's right. My argument has nothing to do with the Coriolis effect. It has to do with the Coriolis causes.
So, given that if Earth had a...
You're saying it doesn't exist?
I'll just try and summarise it for you. So, given that a declaration of an Earth-based Coriolis effect would require there to be two reference frames, and if you had two separate reference frames, you would have significantly shortened duration of flight. The example being given from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA being approximately 1.5 hours as opposed to the actual duration of approximately 4 hours.
Why would it be 1.5 hours?
Well, if the Earth was rotating underneath, which is the necessary requirements to have a Coriolis effect, then absolutely it would.
No, I don't see how you got there, because the plane has an initial velocity to the east with the Earth as well, and you're just discounting that to say that the Earth...
No, we're not discounting that. You're wrong. I already went over it in the presentation. Obviously, you didn't watch it, because I went through step by step
math is wrong.
3 times. 3 times
If
I
I
did.
toss the ball upwards when I'm in a moving train on a fast train, does it go to the back of the car immediately? No.
I'll just try and summarise once more. If you are describing a Coriolis effect that is on a spinning Earth, then to have that effect, you would require 2 separate reference frames to have an Earth-based Coriolis effect. That is...
Yeah, that's easy.
I hadn't quite finished. So, in order to have Coriolis effect, Earth would have to have 2 separate reference frames. That is Coriolis effect. If
No,
you
that's
have...
wrong. You have to use 2 separate reference frames for your analysis.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Sorry, you're just wrong. I don't know what else to tell you.
Sorry, do you feel that Coriolis effect doesn't require 2 reference frames?
It does, but the
Right,
way
can you
you're
keep
saying
your
that
mouth
it
shut,
requires
please?
2
Excuse me.
references, that wasn't done.
Excuse me.
That wasn't
Yes,
done.
I'm describing
Hold on,
2 separate
hold on.
reference frames.
I'm not done.
Please keep your mouth
Just a
shut until
second.
I finished.
I'm not done.
I don't want to have to shut
Please
you up.
close
I
your
was in the
mouth
middle
so I
of
can finish
talking.
my sentence.
Excuse me.
Oh, shit.
Excuse
teach you
me.
something.
Excuse me.
How about you be quiet
Excuse
so that
me.
you can learn something?
I seem to be in the middle of a statement that this gentleman has interrupted.
Quiet your mouth. Shut your mouth. Open your ears.
Right, let's close that line down. So I'm detailing a summary of the necessity to have 2 reference frames on a spinning ball Earth. That's how far I got in my explanation before this gentleman decided that it was the point that the audience no longer needed this calm, concise summary of John's presentation. So I've had to close that line so I can continue with my calm, concise summary of John's absolute demolition of a spinning ball Earth. And it is as follows. The Coriolis effect requires two separate reference frames. If a spinning ball Earth is to meet the requirements of the Coriolis effect, that would be two separate reference frames, then you would have a duration of 1.5 hours from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA on the same line of latitude. So, given that you must have a 1.5 hour duration flight, to have two separate reference frames on your spinning ball Space Monkey fantasy, then it debunks the notion that we have a spinning ball Earth, because we do not have a 1.5 hour flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA. That is what we're asking you. That is still talked through the entire what I said, even though I had his line closed. That's what we are asking you to refute. Presumably you didn't hear a word of it. Presumably you didn't hear a word of it because you talked the entire time I gave the summary.
I did. No, I was listening the whole time. You just said something that was wrong, so we can throw out the rest of it.
What a clown.
You have absolutely no reason to say that a flight should take 1.5 hours in a rotating sphere.
Yes, because to have Coriolis effect, it would mean that the aeroplane was travelling in the non-inertial reference frame as described in the Coriolis effect. If it is travelling in the non-inertial reference frame, then the Earth rotates underneath and the duration would be 1.5 hours.
Yes.
No, because you're discounting the initial velocity.
No. In order to have a Coriolis effect, it must leave the inertial reference frame and travel into the non-inertial reference frame. That is the essence of the Coriolis effect. Now, we aren't, as John pointed out at the beginning of this little back and forth, debating Coriolis effect. We're debating the necessary requirements for Earth to have that effect. And the necessary requirements for Earth as a sphere in your fantasy to have that effect is two reference frames. So if you have two reference frames and a Coriolis effect, you must leave the non-inertial reference frame and enter the inertial reference frame. That is Coriolis effect. So to just pluck out of the air that you've got the added velocity is to defy the Coriolis effect, and we're not here to debate Coriolis. It's real, it's described with two reference frames, and the effect is generated when an object leaves the non-inertial reference frame and enters the inertial reference frame. If Earth has the effect, then the plane must be leaving the non-inertial reference frame and entering an inertial reference frame, giving rise to a 1.5 hour flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA. The fact we don't observe this means there is no Coriolis effect. There is no spinning ball Earth.
Boom.
Are you ready to open your ears yet? Because everything you just said is wrong.
We call that on the
He
debate.
can't hear anything, can he?
We hear that. We call that a hand wave dismissal.
No, all you did was ramble on nonsense while you had me muted, so you didn't have to actually listen to anything, because you have flurfer brain, and you're incapable of actually up for yourself talking.
Your mic's open now. Do you
You're
want to give a
such a
rebuttal?
clown, Giggles.
No, don't. Do you want to give a rebuttal?
That's not a counter argument.
Yeah, I'm asking you for a counter argument. Your mic's wide open.
Yeah, Coriolis effect only exists when you're moving along lines of latitude, and you just said that in your example that is a constant line of latitude, so you wouldn't observe the Coriolis effect in your example.
So that's incorrect. Your rebuttal is wrong. In the description of the Coriolis effect, it in no way shape, or form describes anything to do with latitude or longitude lines or directions. The description of the Coriolis effect is quite simple. It involves two reference frames, a non-inertial and an inertial reference frame. Nothing to do with what you incorrectly described as Coriolis. You are wrong. There is no citation you will provide that describes latitude lines in reference to Coriolis unless it's describing your Earth-based fantasy.
No, I can just go to my mechanisms book, and where it shows you that you have to be moving along the radius of rotation to experience the Coriolis effect.
Sorry, that's not a longitude line, is it? Or a latitude line?
Yeah.
Even?
For a rotating Earth, that would be...
Oh, so as I just described, unless you're going to reference it with regard specifically to your spinning ball fantasy. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, in this instance, Coriolis effect, which is simple, two reference frames.
Yeah, you need to go look it up in the mechanisms book.
I've looked at what Coriolis effect is. I'll say it nice and slow for you, my fundy friend. To have a Coriolis effect, you need a non-inertial and an inertial reference frame. That is what you need to have Coriolis effect. Simple.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is. You are wrong. You believe it's only in reference to your spinning ball Earth fantasy. Go ahead, John.
We just presented on it. You're saying, nuh-uh. Well, the entire audience just seen it in definition and in example with a GIF. And let me remind you, our argument isn't about the Coriolis effect for the second time. Thanks.
I'm happy to get some closing remarks from the Ballbusters, round out the show, and then advise everybody to go and check out the 900th Flat Earth debate, which will air in about 5 minutes' time after this live show finishes. However, if you are watching the show on the Nathan Oakley channel, there will be a brief after show to follow. But any closing remarks for the live show from the Ballbusters panel?
I hate Coriolis. I have no time for anybody that doesn't comprehend either the concept, or if they do comprehend the concept, its application on a spinning ball Earth. It's nonsense, and I hate Coriolis.
Fair enough.
Well, not Coriolis, but having to discuss it with ballers as they flip flack and change their position and twist it one way and apply it this way but not the other, and it's as witnessed there a sheer frustration, and all they resort to in the end is telling you that you don't know anything.
Come on, Adam. You're telling me that you don't like the rotating hot tubs and the torpedoes?
That was an analogy too far, John. That was.
All right, let's hopefully get some equally light-hearted round-out remarks from Betty and Paula. Do you want to go first, Betty?
Yeah, well, I think that John made it a little bit more precise since last time with the 5 points. I had a remark about that wiki GIF. Maybe John can bring that one up again.
Yeah, 1 second. Hold on.
Where is it? Yeah, so if you look at that representation, it never states anything about atmosphere and air and friction and stuff. It's just two reference frames. It is the ball, the black ball, or the red dot, basically. So it's either the plane where you're standing on, or you are the object in the sky. And that's what makes the Coriolis effect up. And that's why I liked it when John said, well, I don't bring in the whole atmosphere being dragged with the Earth bit in, because it's not needed. Because if you look at this GIF, there's no atmosphere where this happens. I mean, it's just a representation. You see the plane, you see the point of perspective, basically. That's what's important. And it's the same effect that you have if you are in a standing train and another train is also standing there, and suddenly you think that you're moving, but the other person in the other train is moving. So that's the effect. And so either the ground is moving or the plane is moving up above. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point about the Coriolis. We see movement, but we see movement of planes. We are not moving, but we see the movement in the sky, basically.
Are you saying that the weather patterns, the actual weather patterns, they're not in line with Coriolis effect and not actual deflection? Amazing.
Yeah. Well, these things, we see them moving in all kinds of directions. So that must mean that we are not moving, because otherwise we couldn't see them moving in all kinds of directions. It's so simple. For me, it's that simple, basically.
Right, you're going to get the last word, Paula.
Yeah, that illustration running. I mean, how can people look at that and say what was something I found in the chat that, quote, planes taking off retain the speed it had on the runway, the plane has inertia. That's like saying that you shouldn't see any apparent deflection because it has momentum. Therefore, that ball should curve. That's basically what they're arguing. I mean, it should curve in actuality when they're saying that it has the same speed as Earth, that it's also moving in the same direction, the same vector, the same arc, whatever, that you should not see any apparent deflection, which is what they're arguing. But that's like saying that ball should still appear to be in a straight line because the red dot are somehow moving with the ball, I guess, which is not Coriolis. So there's just no way around it. I don't know how they can make statements like that while they're watching this.
Yeah, they're saying the ball retains the velocity of the non-inertial reference frame. It's like, well, no, the very definition is that it's travelling in its own reference frame in a straight line, and the rotation takes place underneath. Not it retains it when it goes into the second reference frame. The whole point is it's a different reference frame. In other words, devoid of anything to do with the rotational reference frame, the non-inertial reference frame. It's not retaining anything. That's not the description, but they'll just pluck this bullshit out the air. Any last remarks of anybody? Oh, sorry, go on, Paula.
No, I was going to say, yeah, they want it both ways at the same time, and they can't. They can have Coriolis or they can have momentum, but they can't have both.
Indeed. Any other last remarks from Ballbusters, and then we'll move on to the outro and ask everyone to stay tuned if they're watching on Nathan Oakley. No. With that, I will say...
Yes, I got one more.
Go ahead.
Ballers, take 5 steps. Thanks.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge mass. Well, I'll say if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be a short after show to follow. However, if you're watching live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, then you can actually go and watch the 900th Flat Earth debate, which is just starting over on a different stream. So check out Nathan Oakley channel and go to the 900th episode there. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of today's Ballbusters. So that's Paula, Betty, Adam and Quantum Eraser for making this Ballbusters possible. And of course, a huge, massive thank you to everybody in the Discord server for making the public part of this show possible. Again, a huge thank you to everyone who tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.